Okay, so I call the meeting to order. It's 7:01 p.m., the Transportation Advisory Committee of the town of Concord. And let's see, well, the first thing up is the minutes. Let's hold off on that till Phil shows up in case there are any questions or issues. Chair report. I'll give you some stuff that's been going on. Let's see, Michelle Cardinal has had to resign from the committee. Her job, she got a promotion of some sort, and unfortunately, part of her responsibilities include Asia. So she has a lot of meetings, evenings and such, and plus all the regular family stuff people have. So she's not gonna be here tonight. She was hoping to be, but she won't. Related to that, someone has put in a green card for the committee, a fellow named Josh Lee. I'll be talking to him on Thursday. I met him briefly at town meeting. That's all I know about that. I'm not, Erin, are you aware, are there any other green cards in for the committee?
So I was gonna say, I can take a look and see if we have any others. Nobody's contacted me specifically saying that they're interested, but that doesn't mean that they haven't submitted one. Right. So I can go in and look at those and see if we have anybody else who's interested. And we can also sometimes, provide, let people know that there is an opening, and then people might express their interest. Right. So we can see where it goes from there.
Okay, let's see, protocol for a new member. I mean, I should talk to them as the chair, probably Terry should talk to them as our liaison to the select board. I assume she's continuing on our liaison. I think they were discussing assignments, liaison assignments.
She just joined us too, so she might be able to answer that for you.
Oh, Terry, hi, you there?
Yes, I'm so happy to join you that you switched nights and which nights the select board.
Okay, you're still our liaison, right?
I requested it and I got it. I'm very excited.
Okay, good. Okay. So then the questions for you. I think I'd sent you an email. We do have someone who's interested in the committee. I'm going to talk to him, Josh Lee. I'm going to talk to him on Thursday.
Okay.
You want to talk to him as well?
Sure. But you mean at the same time or?
No, it's at your leisure, whatever.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but if you guys recommend him, I'm sure we'll go along, but I'll talk to him briefly.
Okay, does anyone else want to talk to him on the committee?
So Nick, I'll go through and see if there's anybody else who has expressed interest in being part of, so that we give everybody a fair shot.
Okay, great. So if you could let me know by Thursday, just when I'm talking to him, so I can let him know if there's anyone else interested too.
Nick, do you want somebody else to talk to him with you?
It's up to you if you want to. What you want to, Dan, or it's fine.
I'm happy to join you. I mean, I don't know that we need to overkill it.
Well, I'd rather not have two people gang up on him. So if you want to see him separately, just let me know.
Okay.
Okay.
Probably not, yeah.
Okay. Let's see, the next thing, vice chair nomination. Let's see, I'm going to be having a medical procedure coming up in next week. Yeah, late next week. What's today?
Tuesday.
10th. No, 2 weeks, in 2 weeks. So, and I'm not sure what the recovery is going to be like. So I just wanted to go ahead and make sure we have a vice chairman. So I would like to nominate Dan Schrager to be vice chairman, and which means basically, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm not available to do a meeting, you'll take over and run the meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Comments or discussion?
Second.
Thank you for the second.
Yeah. Thanks, Norm.
Sounds great.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on it then. Kathleen?
Yes.
Let's see, Norm?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Dan?
Do I need to abstain?
You can do whatever you want.
What do you? Yeah, well, you don't need me, so I'll abstain.
Okay, then I'm a yes. So you're it, Dan. You're the vice chair.
Okay.
Okay. Let me finish your report. Chair report. I got sidetracked by the membership thing. I've continued to have discussions with Alan Cathcart tomorrow night, specifically on the issues of budgeting, getting correct levels of budgeting established for public works, both for maintenance and for projects improvements. And tomorrow night at the Public Works Commission meeting, they're having a discussion on that. I will be participating in that. If anyone else wants to join in, the meeting's at 4. And you can pick up the link on, you can participate via Zoom, which I think I will be doing. And I know Mary Hartman will be there. I'm not sure if she's their liaison, but it may only be because of her experience with the Finance Committee, but at any rate. So hopefully this starts a discussion that will lead us down a path to get better funding, more appropriate levels of funding for public works. Let's see, one other just comment I'll make. Observing town meeting, it really hit home to me how important it is, if you're bringing something up at town meeting, that you have done your homework with all of the committees who might be have interest, and also with the citizenry. I thought it was very interesting in the zoning article, was that 33? I forget the number, 33, that there was a significant traffic component to the complaints that many people had, or the concerns that many residents had. And the response from the planning, from Burton, the chair of the planning committee was that, well, they don't do traffic studies until someone has a development proposal. Well, I understand that's the process, but that ain't going to get you through town meeting if that's a big issue and you haven't looked at it. So it really drove home to me, you've really got to anticipate what might come up. You have to be in touch with the residents, people who are affected. And, you know, we've talked a lot about the need to gather community input, and obviously it's very important. So that's that. I didn't have anything else unless someone had a question. Good. Okay. Updates on areas of interest research. So I see this meeting more or less as a reset. You know, we went through a couple of fire drills when we got started to get stuff to the select board. We did that. We learned some things. You know, last meeting we said there's some topics we want to start to research and do work on. And so I'd like to go around and just see what people have been able to do. I'm not expecting a lot, so whatever you did is fine. But one question first for Aaron. Aaron, what's the status of the transportation planner? Has anything happened?
So as I understand it, it was obviously passed in the budget. So there's a half-time transportation planner budgeted for. I don't know much more than that. I think that they're trying to create, there's a long process that goes through, you know, the personnel board after it's gone through HR and the town manager's office. So my assumption is that it's on its way. They're definitely thinking about it. I know that the planning department is excited about the prospect of getting somebody in to work on transportation.
And Terry, a question for you. Do you know, there was some talk of hopefully turning that into a full-time position. Do you know if that's likely to happen or not? Is it still being worked?
I don't know, actually, but I do know that when something passes a town meeting, it doesn't become effective until July 1.
Right.
So HR could certainly start the process now, but the first day of work can't be until July 1.
Okay. Yep. Understood. Okay. So, okay. So then, so thank you both for that. So we're heading in the right direction, at least. Maybe, let's see, Laura, would you like to start? I know you were busy doing homework.
Yes, I'm not entirely sure I did the right homework, but I did do
That's
homework.
okay.
Because I volunteered for two things and might have mixed up the order of things. So what I did do work on is we had talked about having a comprehensive list of the transportation services that exist currently in Concord. So I started to dig around. I didn't do a ton of work on this, but mostly a copy paste and link collecting job on it. I'm happy to show you. Would it be best to just share my screen?
Yeah, you want to do that, Erin?
Yeah,
Yeah, you should be able to do that.
let me. Are you able to see this okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So as I'm sure everyone here knows, we have 2 commuter rail stations. So I just pulled together some links. I looked at what exists on the website currently, and interestingly, there is one thing that needs to be changed on our town website at the moment, which says that there's a waiting list for the parking permits at Crosby's lot, but I called them and there is no waiting list. There are actually available spots in both parking lots, so we can that could be changed immediately. There's also something incorrect on the Mbta website about our West Concord train station, which says that there's covered bike parking. And I was like, gosh, I don't remember covered bike parking. And I literally went and walked around the station today. There's definitely not covered bike parking there. So I don't know how one gets something changed on the Mbta website. But there's definitely room for a little bit more like writing about, how many spaces. There's just not great information anywhere online really that describes the facilities to somebody who's new or from out of town. Go ahead, Nick.
And could mention that West Concord is, that the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail dumps out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that there's, like I said, there's much that could be added to this. So I think throw ideas out here and I'll jot them down and I can continue adding to this.
Great.
There's also, go ahead, Erin, sorry.
On the bikes, there's a bike rental spot that's near the West Concord commuter rail station. It's actually right over the where the Bruce Freeman crosses the Neshoba Brook. There's one right there, and there's also one in Concord Center at the Visitor Center.
Yes. And Erin, this was a question I had for you. Do you know if there is any information about that bike rental program? Because I could not for the life of me find it online.
Yeah, it's something I've been working on trying to get a little bit more information from the visitor services manager. I don't know if she's written up any instructions yet or anything like that. I know that you can go and it has all the instructions there, so that if you show up, you can use it. But if you need help finding it, it is located on our GIS now. I had that added in so that people could easily find it.
Great. Also, this is a question for this group. My understanding is that there is some daily spots around the Concord Center commuter rail station, but maybe they were strategically left off of information about that station. Or maybe I don't understand it because I don't ever drive to that train station.
So there's parking right in the parking lot at the station, but the ones that you can sign up for are in the Crosby parking lot near the Sudbury end of the parking lot.
I think the question was about bicycle parking.
No, that was
sorry.
actually about car. No, that was about car
okay.
parking.
Okay.
Because it's very clear on all the websites that there's the Crosby parking lot and you can sign up for permits, but there's not a lot of information for people who are maybe not interested in signing up for a permit, but might want to use the lot on a occasional basis.
Right. So it's first come, first serve at the spots at the station itself, I believe.
Yeah, and there's only a few of them. That's probably why they're not marked. And they're also for the businesses that are right there. They're not, as I understand it, they're not specifically for the MBTA.
Do you know, are there any signs there saying what the rules are for that parking? Because I don't remember any.
I can't think of any.
Interesting.
I have a whole section of further research needed, so I'll put that down in the further research needed
Well,
section.
that's a good one. I've always wondered about what the rules are in that little parking lot at the depot, if you could find out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that I learned in doing this is that there is a lot of like, even for me as somebody who's lived here for years and uses this infrastructure, I don't even know the rules. So it's great that we're doing this. I just pulled together some information about the MBTA's discounted and reduced fares. I was sort of following the lead of some other town websites that pull together information about transit in the communities. The bus service is something that definitely could use more of a spotlight. So I pulled what I could off of the website, but this could probably use more information. For example, I would be interested in knowing, is this a public-private partnership? That kind of information I think might make people trust it and understand it better, rather than, because it is kind of a weird service. It's not a very traditional bus service.
In what respect is that, Laura?
What was that?
In what respect is it not a traditional service?
Well, you don't think it's not like a city bus. They're like coach buses that go directly from Crosby's parking lot to Copley Square. So that's a pretty unusual service.
Well, I think it exists in other parts of the outer suburban areas, like perhaps Framingham and other places. I'm not certain of that, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful service, but it's sort of a non-traditional service. So I think that explaining why it exists and how it exists might help people wrap their heads around it a little bit easier. And then there's the Council of Aging on Aging van, the ride services Concord, which I actually didn't know. So that was good to learn about.
Who's eligible for it? Anyone who lives in, do you have to live in Concord or?
You have to live in well, actually you can be a visitor in Concord, I believe. I have a link to the whole website about it, so I'm not sure about the visitor question, but you do have to be eligible for the ride, which is disabled. I think it's primarily.
No, I meant the COA one, the COA.
Oh, COA is age restricted.
And it's only for Concord residents.
And it's only for Concord residents.
Okay.
Yeah. So all of these link to other sites. I basically was just trying to condense a like very brief summary of like, what is this service? And then link to more information.
I think on the COA one, you should mention that it's just for Concord residents.
Yeah, I will do that.
Just say can take Concord residents to and from locations.
Great point. Some discoveries in areas for further research. The MBTA has a youth pass program, but Concord is not a participating community. So that might be something that this community wants to look into. It's for low income youth between the ages of 18 and 25. So it might be just an interesting thing to look into demographics wise, how many people would be eligible for that service in Concord, and might it improve ridership on the commuter rail?
Back on your thing on the MBTA and the senior pass, one of the horrible things about the MBTA is the way you get a senior pass is you have to show up at one of the subway stations in Boston on one of the few times each week when they let people line up to get one of these things. But I discovered that some towns, and I'm not sure if our COA does it in Concord, they will sponsor a day when the MBTA people will come out to the town and sign people up for the MBTA Senior Charlie card or whatever it's called.
Oops, excuse me.
So you might check with the COA and see if they do that or have ever done it or what they know about it, because it's a major pain to try to get one of those cards. I got one several years ago and I was amazed how difficult they make it.
there was a link that said something about applying online.
Yes, there are some options for applying online and applying by mail, but I do think it would be great to have information about whether the Council on Aging can help people through the application process.
Yeah, that might be new, so maybe they fixed that problem. Okay.
Pandemic was good for some things.
Yes. So yeah, the youth pass is something that we could look into, and it would be an area of research. Would it be worthwhile? How much does it cost for a community to become a participating member in that program? Just something that I came across. The other thing is that the MBTA partners with middle and high schools to provide student Charlie cards, which provides reduced fares for commuter rail. So that might also be an area that we could look into in terms of, would that be useful to any of the private schools who have students coming in from other towns? Is there a way to kind of promote that program, make it easier for schools to sign up for it? And then the town of Lexington, I came across this great little form that residents can use to submit their concerns about transportation issues in general. So that's on here if we wanted to look into that as a way of collecting feedback from the community in a passive way. And those are sort of my general thoughts about Class 1 bicycle parking structures, but I would be very interested in learning if there are other MBTA communities that do provide covered bicycle parking. The fact that they listed covered bicycle parking made me think of this as like, what is covered bicycle parking? Are other MBTA communities putting that in as an option for people? And then the other thing that I thought was interesting in my research is the way that we issue parking permits for the parking lots at the commuter rail station. They only allow you to register up to 2 cars with it, which disincentivizes carpooling between households. You know, if you could, especially, it's not a big problem right now because there are spaces, but I know my husband was on a waiting list for 2 years there. And if he could have carpooled with a neighbor and they could have swapped off whose car went. So I just wonder if that might be an area that we want to look into. Is there a way to expand options for households who want to carpool with their neighbors and share it amongst 4 cars instead of 2, for instance? Especially now that post-pandemic, people are only going into the office like 1 or 2 days a week. It's sort of a shame that we assign 1 spot for 1 household for 1 day a week.
That's a good point. Yeah, excellent point. Yes.
So that's my research.
I like it a lot. It's really, it's the start of something very useful. And it does, your research shows how much more we need to learn too. It's amazing. Okay. Let's see, who else had an assignment? Dan, did you get a chance to do anything?
Not a lot. I mean, I think that what I was wrestling with was how we gather up, which I think is effectively, you know, I was tasked with finding out from the businesses what we should be doing to assist them. And my sense is that there's a lot of information out there that has already been surveyed. And I was trying to think of what business groups we could interface with where we can try to put together the needs of what the businesses are looking for in town, whether it be, you know, more walker friendly sorts of options, what we need to do in terms of having alternative transportation options available to access the centers easily, in terms of parking issues for cars, what's available, what's necessary, how are the meters impacting anything that, you know, would potentially affect their people accessing the stores. And then another aspect of it was we had some conversations in terms of delivery services, where across various businesses in the community, we could have home delivery services perhaps pooled together so that, you know, something along the lines of an Uber Eats for whether it be, you know, a variety of businesses, grocery stores, restaurants, liquor stores, etc. But I think what I'd like to get my hands around is, what business groups are going to be able to best gather the most useful information for us in terms of addressing the needs of the business community in the two centers and beyond. So,
Well, I think the Economic Vitality Committee is one, in a sense, it's the most important because it's a town committee. So it's one we absolutely have to connect with. Can you start, look at, sort of zoom in on a couple of their meetings and see what's up?
sure.
There's
Sure.
also the Concord Business Partnership, which might be a good group.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about that. I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it.
So it's a number of, it's more like the Chamber of Commerce goes, Beth Williams, the Visitor Services Manager goes, and it's more of a sort of broad look as opposed to the Economic Vitality Committee, which is sort of looking at specific issues and how to bring economic development and vitality to the area. So the business partnership is more looking at sort of I would say more of a zoomed out look, and how, so for instance, I know that they'll take certain topics and talk about, I'm speaking with them in June about the film industry and how the film industry has come to Concord and what it sort of means for businesses in the area. So it's groups that are working sort of simultaneously, but also working on slightly different topics, taking a slightly different approach. I believe it's all business owners in the Concord Business Partnership.
Okay. So is that something, you're going in June next month?
Yes.
Is that something Dan could observe too, or if he's around?
That's a good question. I don't know if I assume that they're open meetings. I can check on that.
Yeah, if you could let Dan know, let us know.
Who would be the person, Aaron, to connect with?
Jen, I want to say Clark, but I need to double check on her name.
Okay.
I believe she'd be the best person.
Well, if you want to, I don't want to step on your toes with that. So if you want to check in with her and see, that'd be great. And just let me know.
Yeah, I can do that.
Would the West Concord Cultural District meeting also be a good place to gather information about the business community? I'm not exactly sure what their charge is, so that's why I asked the question.
Well, I have a related question, and that is, it seems to me, I don't know if it's parallel to the business community, but all of the nonprofits in town, the museums, the national park, the art institutions, the public library. I mean, there's a whole, and they draw a lot of people to Concord. And certainly there are transportation, parking related issues there. And I don't know if we should think of that as something as part of the business community or separate from it, but it's equal importance in terms of transportation in my mind.
Certainly, if you're going to a performance at 51 Walden, for example, or Concord Academy, you do need to deal with parking issues. So
we're getting there too, if you're not from Concord.
Mhm.
Especially because they have performances at unusual times sometimes, and the commuter rail doesn't run or whatever. Yep. Okay. In fact, wasn't there just a big thing? They had two big events scheduled for the Emerson Umbrella and the library. They had to back off on one of them, right?
Well, that was actually somebody got sick, and so they couldn't perform at the library.
That's what.
So it ended up actually working out okay, but
a potential disaster.
Potential disaster, but we had a good plan. But speaking of all the different, different historic sites and museums and art galleries, there is a group that also meets that includes all of those. There's a tourism group that meets and that frequently will take up topics as well, such as how to get people around or how to bring people from, say, the North Bridge to to the umbrella and where the connections can be there, whether it's physical connections or sort of, mindful connections, and how can we make sure that people are getting the most out of their visit.
So it feels to me like maybe if someone wanted to grab it, the non-government, the nonprofits might be a separate one from business that someone might start to look at, connect with that group. Anyone?
Their missions are similar. The needs would probably be along the same lines, whether they be performing arts or retail.
Yes, except I think one difference is that a lot of the, well, no, I won't say it. I was going to say, there is a certain event aspect to many of the nonprofits, not all of them, and some of them have things going on all the time, but it's an interesting aspect of it. But I mean, do you want to do both, Dan? That's fine. Or
well, I mean, that seems like a lot.
Yeah, it does. That's why I was.
Yeah, no, I think splitting it up would be probably useful.
Okay, well, Laura's overloaded. Kathleen, want to volunteer?
You're muted.
Thank you. Just to discuss parking needs, or
No,
is there
no,
a
just
broader?
what the need, in general, what the needs are of the nonprofit, that whole sphere.
Transportation needs, not
Just in general.
Transportation needs in general. Yeah, what are their needs? What do they see as the problems? What, not just parking at all, but everything.
Yep.
If you'd prefer the businesses, I'm happy to do the not-for-profits.
Nope.
Okay.
I like the not-for-profits.
Okay, great. Okay, so we've got a new assignment. Let's see. Oh, sort of related. I did take a pass through all the town committees, all 60 some of them. And I drafted something and sent it to Erin to look over because she knows more than I do about that stuff. Probably sometime before the next meeting, we can get out something just saying which committees, and I had some thoughts on which ones what sort of things we need to do with them, but we need to think a little bit more about that. And I think we'll have something to talk about at the next meeting. So Erin, if you can make sure that gets on the agenda for the next one.
I can do that.
Great. It wasn't as overwhelming as I feared. It would be. Okay, so I guess Phil would be the other one, but he's still not here, is he?
No, he joined.
You here, Phil? Are you lurking? There he is. Okay.
Hello, everybody. Sorry for running a little bit late.
Okay.
I think I suggested I would do some research on bike ped stuff. I can report to you that there are a couple of different organizations that I think might be willing to assist us. One would be MAPC. Erin and I attended a meeting this morning, which was organized by the bike ped coordinator for MAPC, David Lutzenheiser. And I think that they would be happy to schedule a time to sit with us and talk about how his organization could be assistance to us. And then there's another organization called Walk Boston, which, despite its name, is more of a statewide organization these days. And they've provided services, sort of consulting services in a sense, for communities throughout the state. And my sense is that they might be willing to send a representative to talk with us. And if you recall, a week or so ago, I sent around some materials from AARP, which might be the basis for us moving forward and using their sort of template for doing stuff about walking and pedestrian and bicycle stuff. And then the last thing that I thought would be great if the committee wants to adopt this is having the committee be the sort of the sponsor of a Safe Routes to School task force. So Safe Routes to School is it's actually a federal program. It's delegated to the state. State administers it through MassDOT. And the idea of the task force is, again, it's kind of a template thing that MassDOT has as an undertaking for towns to use. And it's very similar to the AARP stuff, where the idea is to reach out to people, hold community meetings, get input from them, identify specific areas in town where pedestrian safety or bicycle safety is a concern, and then take steps to try to see what can be done about it. So the other charm of having a task force is Safe Routes to School, like I said, is a MassDOT program, and the carrot part of the MassDOT program is that if a community participates in it, the community becomes eligible for grant programs for various kinds of either assistance for technical assistance or actual construction and design assistance for projects which are safety related. So, for example, apparently the DPW applied for a Safe Routes grant. I'm not really sure what the details of that was, but the more activities that you participate in, as far as the Safe Routes to School program, the more points you get, and the more points you get, the more likely it is that you get a grant. So first thing is having kids to go to school, doing their, bike to school days, which we're actually doing last week and this week. And then having a task force is a points program. Having their other activities are also points based, and those go into the scoring, at least in part, for who gets grants for the engineering and technical assistance and the design and construction assistance.
So a task force, Concord doesn't have a task force of this sort.
No. So, and what would be, how that would work is something that the coordinator for the program also might attend one of our meetings, and she can explain how from her, so she's a paid staff person, works for MassDOT, and she would explain how a task force is set up, how you do it in accordance with their rules, so that we would become eligible for the additional points for our application for grants.
It's my thought, that sounds great. It seems, I wish we had one already. It sounds like it might be most efficiently done by a couple of people meeting with that person. Is there any reason you're suggesting that the whole committee do it, or am I missing?
No, I think we can just meet with Rachel. I think it would be useful for her to make a presentation to us at some point in time.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
But I think in terms of what she's looking for her end of it is some body of the town, a committee or staff or an agency saying, we want to do this as an undertaking. And they try to make it fairly easy to participate in their programs from what I've observed. So
Phil, I know that in order to apply for grants, we have to be a part of the Safe Routes to School program. Right. So I know that the schools and engineering have both been involved. So I wouldn't necessarily say that we aren't a part of it yet. I don't know what it is. So I might want to have a larger conversation with the schools and with engineering to see if we don't already have some sort of a task force that's created and working with them already.
I know we don't, because I've spoken with our staff person, our community liaison person. And she and I have discussed this as a next step for the community to undertake.
Okay, so maybe this might be a good agenda topic for another meeting so that we can have the schools here, and because obviously Safe Routes School involves the schools.
Yeah, so I can tell you the sequence of events was that the volunteer group encourage the kids to ride their bikes a couple of years ago. We were successful at undertaking that activity. We specifically modeled it on the Safe Routes program. And then we lobbied Dr. Hunter to agree to participate in the program. And after, several successful events and, programmatic activities, she agreed that it was something that was that she was interested in. And we asked her specifically to sign off on the program, which she did. I can send out the materials that were created at that time.
So this question on the task force, we must need, however the task force gets formed, if I were the state agency, I'd want to know that it was an official task force of the town.
Right, yeah.
They would need
So-
something like the select board or the town manager or somebody to say, yes, this is the task force, right? There's some
Yes,
process.
I mean, this is where I think having the staff person tell us how
Yeah.
it's been done and, what form they might want to sign. Their approach in this program has been to make it really pretty straightforward and simple from what I've observed. So, the school department was asked to sign a one-pager with bullets saying we're in. And I can send you a copy of that. I'm not sure what the DPW and engineering end of it may be, but I think that at least in terms of the activities that have been undertaken thus far, once the school department signed off on it, the state people said, okay, now you're eligible for the kinds of stuff that you're doing now. The staff person and I have discussed the idea of a task force as a next step, which is why, not to, jump too hard on an errand, but I mean, she and I were pretty clear that that had not been undertaken by the town at this point in time, which is why we discussed that as a next step.
Maybe
They have-
maybe you should arrange for a meeting with you and Erin and that person, and then Erin, if she needs time.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Departments to see what they think they're doing. That would.
Yep.
So the Mass DOT website has a list of alliance partners and it has Bike to School Concord
That's right. So Bike to School
as,
Concord
as
is
an
a,
alliance partner.
right. So that was the group, the citizens group that came together to encourage the town to participate in the group. And if you Google Bike to School Concord, offline, you'll see what that group has done over the last couple of years, because there's
So that's a non-governmental group of citizens who just got together and.
right. That's all just volunteers. Mostly it's parents of school-age kids. I'm involved. Some of the other gray hairs are involved. Our activity was, like I said, we specifically modeled it so that it would be as similar to the Safe Routes program the first couple of times around, and then it became effectively the state, a Safe Routes sponsored program. So, and we're doing it again tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the morning at Alcott School. So come on down, because Alcott, it's either going to be Alcott or Willard this year. We have the most kids riding their bikes to school. We'll see.
Cool. So it's a competition. Cool.
It is. All of this stuff, honestly, is to at this level is to make it fun for the kids, fun for the parents, comfortable for the school department and each of the principals. It's been a pretty successful event. We've kept track of how many kids are participating, so we have some pretty good stats. We've been lucky. We've had good weather for the most part. So
It sounds like a good community build. It sounds like a good community building thing too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then if you take a look at the website, we have lots of photos and videos and stuff like that, so you can see what happened.
What are the mechanics of it, Phil? I mean, how does this whole thing come together? Is everybody kind of meeting at the school and you're having a hoedown? And
Well, to take a big step back, what we as a group of, parents and grandparents did was we reached out to the school department, and we also reached out to the police chief and asked police chief, if they would participate with us. And so the chief assigned Ron Holzinger, who is the community service officer. Ron's been a very enthusiastic supporter. He's a police officer. And as a practical matter, what Ron will do tomorrow, along with several other officers, is he will meet us, parents, kids, at the parking lot behind the visitor center at Kais Road. And then the kids will have kind of a processional led by Ron or another officer. And at least last year, there was police cruiser at the end. Kids had a really good time. Wasn't a really long ride, but it was fun. And at the end of the event, the Safe Routes program provides us with what kids want. Kids want swag, man. They want buttons, they want stickers, they want little blinky lights, they want little things that they can pin on themselves and stuff like that. So we have a table set up. We have handouts for parents talking about school safety, bike and pedestrian safety. It's an event that lasts maybe about 45 minutes or an hour. At the school end, the people who are working on it are the principal and the PE teacher. So, Dr. Hunter delegated this to each principal delegated it in turn to the PE teacher. I think we've had a pretty good turnout. We had at Willard on Monday, we had 98 kids show up. Last week at the Thoreau School, we had over 50 kids show up on a gray and almost rainy day. So it was fun. And, hopefully the message about road safety and, being careful and being safe was communicated with the kids and the parents. That's really the point of this, is to encourage the kids and encourage the parents.
Laura?
I have some questions just about sort of the procedure of this. I think this is a wonderful program, obviously. And I'm just wondering, this isn't organized by a citizens group, and is this the kind of thing that the town could, or this committee could be taking a more active role in? And the reason I ask that is because I saw it crossed my news feed this morning that it's National Bike to Work Day on May 20th. And they're like the city of Boston. The reason it came across my desk is because the city of Boston has taken this as like a huge campaign, and it's clearly a city program. They're doing like a big thing about it. It's in their newsletter, which is how I found out about it. And so I'm curious if there are other communities that are using these kinds of campaigns, bike to school, bike to work, as a way of collecting data, collecting feedback, and changing the culture of transportation in the community. So I'm just curious if this is something that this committee or a subcommittee of this committee or some other existing committee, hopefully we don't have to start another committee after 65 committees, could take some active role in. I'm just curious how that works, how those kinds of, educational campaigns work in the context of a town committee.
So I'll just jump in and say, Kathleen mentioned that there's a list of communities that participate in the Commonwealth, so there's a lot of them. I mean, there's like 300 schools that participate in the program, and then maybe 120 individual communities that participate in the program. And at least from what I've observed is, sort of participating as a volunteer or citizen or whatever, the way these things get started and then actually continue to flourish seems to be a little different in each community. There's definitely, grassroots input from volunteers, but it also seems as if the ones that are successful and continue have either it's the police department or the DPW or the schools, and it's different in each community, but one of those groups seems to be the primary mover, where they assign, it's either the superintendent maybe that delegates it in some way, school superintendent, or the DPW director, or the police chief, assign somebody within that each agency to become the person whose responsibility it is to manage the program. And the communities that have the longest lifetime have a staff person of some, in some role, who has taken it on as a responsibility. And I think it's also a national program, of course. So, this is the idea of safe routes to school is called out at the federal level. So it's not a state thing exactly, but we could certainly get lots of input from different communities. I mean, we can just call up Lexington, or for example, one of the towns is very similar to us is Holliston. It's a police officer in Holliston who is very enthusiastic. He's really taken on the Ron Holzinger role. Ron's the police officer. And I've encouraged Ron to call the officer in Holliston so that, maybe they can, talk, and Ron may be able to see what the fellow down in Holliston is doing. But Holliston, similar type of suburban, exurban community with the same kind of challenges with the schools, may or may not be connected with sidewalks, or, maybe are not really close to a densely populated neighborhood. So, I think the challenges there are similar to what we have with our primary schools.
It would be interesting if out of this program, we got some information about where the major safety issues are related to getting to school, because those would seem to me to be pretty high priority.
Yeah, I think that's the idea of the task force. That would be the deliverable would be just what you said, identifying safety issues.
Good place to start. Hard to argue against. Right. Yes, Kathleen.
I just wanted to thank Phil for bringing all those resources to our attention, because you hit the nail on the head. MAPC is perfect to get here to talk to us, because there's lots they could do for the town and may have already. I love AARP's checklists and their guidance. They're just great. I don't know why more towns don't use them. They're really a fantastic resource. They aren't just helpful for those that are aging. It's just a very good resource, as well as Walk by Boston. So I think it's fantastic, all of them. And yes, let's get them all here to talk. I think that's, I guess, Nick, what I would wonder is next steps for each of these things.
Yes, good question. Let's see. Well, just circling back for the business one, Dan connecting up with the Vitality Committee, certainly. And then let's see, connecting with the let's see, did we twist your arm to agree to do the nonprofits? Yes.
Nope. So I'll look into that. But the ones that have already started.
Yeah, in terms of next steps for the public transportation list, I feel like I have a couple of pieces of homework, and if I can have a time on the agenda next time, I can hopefully have a slightly more finished product.
It's what I love about it is what you're uncovering, the questions we don't have answers to, the things that aren't known. It's really interesting. there's a lot of missing information for the citizens. Yeah. Kathleen, your hand's still up? Or, oh, no, okay. Let me report on the ride services, which is the one I took on. It's clear that that is a big one. It's going to take a long time, I think, to arrange, to validate what's needed with the community and to get it funded, to whatever level is agreed is appropriate. I had a good discussion with Mary Hartman, just because of her, as I said, because of her experience on the finance committee, and it was helpful in just understanding a little bit more for my sake in terms of the funding cycle. It just, I think, though, we've really got to get started with the stuff that Erin has talked about, which is the community input, and how we're going to sense what the community wants and needs in terms of transportation. And part of that is going to be the committees, who we have to connect up with and how. I had, when I made the presentation to the select board, I was approached after the meeting by someone from the Concord Housing Authority, who's on their committee, telling me about perceived problems with getting minorities into Concord housing because of the lack of transportation. So that led to me speaking with, was it Jennifer Polito? Yesterday, who's the director of the CHA, to find out. And she said, well, there's some rumors and perceptions of that, but it's really what you should be doing, Transportation Advisory Board, is really sensing what our residents say and what they need more directly. So it sounded like she's really inviting us to get input from the CHA residents, which I think would be a great place to start. It's clear that communities who would be served by CHA were very much in the mind of the Long Range Planning Committee. And we need to validate what those perceptions were of the Long Range Planning Committee and what people need, and like that. So I think that, starting for the ride service is just starting to do the hard work of getting information from the community and what people want, what they would support, what they think we shouldn't do. That's where we have to start, and it's going to take a while.
And Nick, if you want, I can speak a little bit to that, because I know that you had asked me a couple of questions and I did a little bit of digging, but I also have some other information as well. So some of the programs that Concord was set to be a part of before the pandemic, unfortunately, either lost their funding because the pandemic dried up a lot of funding sources, or we had intermunicipal agreements which expired during the pandemic without the funding. So there are some things that are poised to hopefully start again. I think that once there is that help in planning, that might start up again, especially because now there's a renewed excitement around public transportation. And I think that especially with the infrastructure bill and there's funding coming in and there's a lot of talk about it. And so people are getting excited and really want to be involved. I reached out to a couple of different communities that we had talked about, Nick, and waiting to hear back from them to see how they're doing their ride services and things like that.
Great, good, thank you. Okay, so let's see. So we've agreed to put some of these items like Laura's on the agenda for next time. Dan and Kathleen will reach out to those communities, the business and the nonprofits, and we're going to look to get someone from Metropolitan Area Planning Council. I'm not sure which, at one of our meetings at some point. That was a little bit imprecise, but yes. And let's see, the task force, the Safe Routes Task Force. Erin, you were going to talk to some people, but you and Phil were going to talk and see what would be involved in that. So understand what the criteria are and what we would have to go through if we're going to do that, then suggest it to the town. Okay. And circling back on the agenda to the minutes, Phil, we deferred that since you weren't here. So Which minutes, Aaron, which minutes have we sent out now from?
So we have minutes for February 14th, March 7th, March 28th. Those are the three.
Okay. Okay, have people had a chance to look at them? Any feedback, corrections, comments from anyone? Does someone want to move to accept all three?
I move to accept all three.
Second from someone?
I'll second it.
Okay. Kathleen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Norm?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. We knocked off three. Good work, guys. We're so what's how many? Do we have one more that's coming or no? That's it. We're all caught up now.
That's all the minutes. We're all caught up now.
Wonderful. Okay. So Phil, get to work on the next one today. Okay. Agenda trolley pilot project update. What's happening?
So this is from me. So this is something that we're working on. I'm helping out with it. It's between planning and tourism to bring a tourism trolley to town. So this, not actually a trolley, there's no trolleys available right now. But we're looking at having, let me pull this up. Ooh, that's quite large. All right, so we're looking to have a hop on, hop off trolley making 7 different stops in Concord, starting at the and being based on the Mbta schedule. So people do not have to bring a car to Concord to see all the historic sites if they don't want to.
Wow.
So this would bring them, they could come in the morning, they could get picked up at the Mbta station in Concord Center, get brought around. They can, jump off at the Concord Museum and spend, a couple of hours there. And then when the trolley comes back around, they can jump back on and go to their next place. If they want to skip the Merriam's Corner, they can do that. So it's completely up to them. We're running it 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., which is when most of the historic sites are open. So the idea is that this is inexpensive and reliable. So it's no longer a, if it's raining or kind of cold and people don't want to walk from the train station into Concord Center, this is an option for them to, we're looking at $4 per ride. So it's good all day. So if you get on in the morning, 9 a.m., $4 and you can ride it all day long. So it could be a really great opportunity. We're also looking for, it might be good for local business owners. We've heard from some of them that they are having difficulty getting staff because staff don't necessarily have the money or the means to have their own car or to have a car at work all day. So this would be another opportunity. If they're working between those hours, this is another option for them to get into Concord Center. That's a fairly inexpensive way to do that. And it would be $4 to bring them in and back if they're within that window. And it's also close enough that, if maybe they get off a little bit past, that they could still walk back, but they may get that one-way transit at least. So right now we're looking at starting this in June, pending funding, and going through the end of October, which is the general high season for tourism. We already requested some RFQs and we got 2 responses back. The third one said that they weren't able to do it this year. Both are available. One, we're kind of leaning towards option 1 here as they are available there's a shortage of CDL drivers, and the other one would require, they don't have any drivers available. With this one, they do have drivers available, so we could start June 1st without any issues. We're also looking at doing some online, it's all going to be online payment, and we're looking to see if we can get some GPS tracking or things like that so that people know where the trolley is if they just missed it by a minute. And it's going to be another little, a little bit longer before they can catch the next one, or, if they should just walk from the Orchard House to the Concord Museum or something like that. So we'll give them a better idea. So we're looking at pricing for that. We'd like to do that, but it might be a little bit price prohibitive. We'll see. So this is sort of our idea, and this is a sneak peek for Terry, because our interim town manager, Carrie LaFleur, is going to be bringing this to the select board, I believe at your 23rd meeting. So this is a little bit of a sneak peek.
So you're asking for funding from the town for this?
Yes.
Okay.
It will be offset by, we're assuming about, we'll be making about 16,000, so not a lot, but every little bit helps. And the hope is that this will give us data that we could then go out and get grants with, so that we'd be able to operate this at a larger capacity, especially looking at Rev 250. So we're expecting there to be many more people coming to town, and we'd like to have other opportunities for people to get around that aren't just in single occupant vehicles, or driving around in whatever the airport rents to you. So we think this is a good opportunity, and we are hoping that the TAC agrees and will sort of endorse it and say we support this for bringing it to the select board.
So question, the success of this, I think this could be fantastically successful if promoted properly.
Yes.
Okay, so that is my question. What are the thoughts on promoting this so that the world knows about it? Because, if I were living in Cambridge and I could hop on at, Porter Square on the commuter rail and get to Concord, I would be really interested in this, right? But I've got to know about it.
Yes. So that's one of the things that we're talking about, is how to, we'd ideally like to get something onto the MBTA commuter rails. However, that is very expensive. It's something like $10,000 per month to advertise. So we can't do that, but there may be other options. I'm looking at doing targeted social media, or doing some promoted social media posts, because that might be able to reach a lot of people. Area newspapers, looking at, I guess that you can advertise on the MBTA app, which I don't think I've ever seen an advertisement, but maybe there's different spots where you can see them.
I would say marketing directly to some groups, like, I don't know if you don't want to get overwhelmed, but something like the organizations, churches, COA in Cambridge or Boston, communities, groups that you would want to get here, because you get a group and 5 or 10 people come, it starts being successful.
Yeah, we're also looking at reaching out to the various visitor bureaus and groups that, like, I think it's like See Plymouth or something like that. So if people are in the area to see historic things and they go down to Plymouth and they're here for a long weekend and they're looking for some more things to do, well, we'll have a rack card or a brochure with Plymouth, so that they might see it and say, oh, well, I didn't know we could do that as well. So we're trying to find some different ways to get it out to people. And hit them from a couple different angles, maybe see if there's some local magazines and things like that, community groups.
If you can find out who the right person is at the Boston Globe, if you get in the Boston Globe, I've had personal experience with a business I owned, and we got in the Globe and just they blew our doors off. The people were lining up to get in. It was amazing. And if you can get into whatever the right section is to cover that, you'll have a huge impact. But I also do think groups, if you can get to groups, I don't know what, but however you do it. This has actually been my dream for transportation. It's in Vision Concord 2030, is getting people to Concord, getting them to the train station, having some bus that will take them from place to place. It's the key. I think if this were successful, it would really help us selling ride services more generally. It could grow into that. Laura?
I have a couple questions. Do you have a map that you could show us?
Yeah, so there, I will show you the map. It's too bad this is being recorded because I haven't confirmed with a couple of them yet, but this is
one map that's possible.
yes, this is a possibility. One second. Have to find the right screen. I have too many open, I guess. There it is. So this is the idea. So it's hitting the major historic sites. The hope is that if this is successful in the coming years, we can expand it. We're looking at expanding it to work with the National Park, Lincoln, and Lexington to have some different options as well. That's a larger project which is in the works. But this is sort of our, we need some data in order to show that this can work. So we're hopeful that this will show that there is a need, and that if we expand it further, we're going to get even more people to come and use it.
And my other question is related precisely to that. What are your measures of success here? You know, what would be successful ridership in your first year? How long is the pilot project as well? Maybe you said that and I might have missed it. Do you have like a particular timeline?
Yeah, so it's just June through October this year, because we got kind of a late start on it. But for the first year, we're really trying to gather data. So we want to know if people are there, you know, when they're getting in for the first time, are they getting on at the Mbta stop? Are they coming in on the train, or are they driving in and parking at the Concord Visitor Center and then taking it around to see everything because they don't want to have to worry about parking? So how are they getting there in the first place? What kind of ridership we're getting? Based on a sort of, you know, back of the envelope, we're hoping to get about 4,000 riders would be sort of our minimum threshold to say, like, this has been very successful. And that's based on how many people are taking tours at the visitor center. So we
4,000 in what period of time?
over the June to October.
Wow, that's all.
Yes, well, because that's about what the tours are getting. So we figure, okay, let's start with that as sort of our threshold. And then there's only, you know, hopefully we get that, and then it'll continue to be successful and continue to grow, and we'll blow that number out of the water. Phil?
This looks like a really pretty good plan. I was wondering if you guys had considered maybe running it a little bit further up. I think it's Lexington Road that heads up to 2A, up to where the intersection with 2A is, because that's sort of another little spot where it's kind of the beginning of a long walk to where there are a number of historic houses and that type of stuff.
So that's part of the expanded version.
Okay.
So for this first one, we're basically bringing people to Merriam's Corner so that they could get on the Battle Road, and they could walk that if they wanted to, or they could stop off and just see Merriam's Corner and then hop back on and head off to the next stop. But because that's in Lincoln, we're only really doing Concord right now.
Right. I didn't think about that. Good point. Yep. Of course, maybe you could get Lincoln to chip in.
Well, that's for next time.
So just to clarify, you are looking for the Transportation Advisory Committee's blessing on this proposal, and because I would move to say, like, I think we should support it. I think it seems like a great idea. It's hugely exciting. I look forward to taking my family on it.
We should take a vote on it so that we have a formal position then.
Yeah, so I move to say the Transportation Advisory Committee enthusiastically supports this proposal. or supports this proposal.
Second,
I like enthusiastically.
Phil seconds. Okay, Kathleen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dan,
Enthusiastically, aye.
Phil, you're muted.
Sorry. Yep. Aye.
Norm,
Tepidly aye to balance out Dan.
and I'm an aye as well. Is that
There's
everyone?
always a
Laura,
naysayer
did I get you?
around.
Oh,
I am an I as well.
and I am an aye too.
I
Okay.
have one other question for Erin before she gets off the topic. Have you guys discussed maybe having merchants advertise on the trolley? Is that something that's possible?
So it's funny that you say that. When I was driving home today, I was thinking about that, and because I think I saw somebody advertising on something else, and I was like, wait a second, I wonder if we could do that. So I think that because it is municipally run, it's tricky because we can't have it's sort of a difficult area to get into.
No, it shouldn't be. As long as you set a price and someone agrees that they'll pay that price, it's fair. It's fair to any business who'll pay the price. The only place you might run into a problem is if you get too many people wanting to advertise and you can't accommodate them all.
That'd be a great problem to have. But I think that because advertising is available when working with the visitor center, so they can have people advertise with them. And because this is partially being run through the visitor center, there might be the opportunity for that, but that's something that I'd have to look into a little bit more. But we're on the same wavelength. Phil.
Yeah, I think it would be I think advertising would be a very good thing. It could be in one way you could do that. I mean, not as a revenue thing, but just for some of the museums and other places, just don't charge them anything for it. Just, give them a chance.
Yeah, and if the MBTA can charge us $10,000 a month for advertising on their stations, surely we can, do the same. I mean,
Yeah,
Right,
one thing I learned
10,000 a month, I love it.
one thing I heard from Mary Hartman was revenue streams are good. So look into it.
How did you settle on the $4 per person rate?
So we originally started with 2 to 3 because we didn't want it to be free because we wanted people to have some sort of a stake in it, if you will. So pay some sort of nominal fee. But it was felt, and when we did the math out with the fee that we are going to have for processing the payments, $3 was going to end up being much less. So we thought about $5, but then $5 seemed like it might be a little bit too much. So we settled on 4 as a happy medium.
Laura?
Do you have a threshold for fee charging, like under 5 rides for free or anything like that?
So I'd have to check with what the visitor center does. I know that they give some discounts. I don't know what they are, but that's a good question.
Yeah, family discounts or group discounts or something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
How does the validation work? If I go online and I reach through some app or whatever, like the parking meter apps, I pay for this, and then how does the driver know, or how is it monitored? How is it validated?
Yeah, so there's a website that that you would go to purchase the ticket that's through the visitor center. And you purchase the ticket. I didn't want it to be an app. I was concerned that if anybody's like me, I have very little storage on my phone. And anytime somebody says you have to download an app in order to do this, I'm like, I can't do that. So it's a web browser based application that once you purchase the ticket, then you show the driver that you have the ticket. You can take a screenshot of it, and it stays active till the end of the day. So every time you get on it, you just show them the ticket.
Okay. You need to test that. People will lose the ticket. I'll be happy to be a test bid. My wife's really good at breaking systems like that. She's excellent at it. She knows how to do it. I'm pretty good too. Okay. Is that it? Any other comments, Laura?
Well, I just have a request. When the town has a press release available, can you make sure that we all get it? Because I'm happy to circulate it in my circles to make sure that local residents know that this is a new service that they can take advantage of.
Absolutely.
And let us know when it's going to the select board.
I think it's on the, will be on the agenda for the 23rd, I think. I don't know if Terry's still on. She is.
I have one more proposal and then I'll be quiet, which is, could we, as the Transportation Advisory Committee, have a group ride on it at some point this summer? You know, just, I think it might be
As long as you pay
worthwhile.
$4.
Yeah, do we get the group discount?
No.
But I do think it would be worthwhile, like for us as the Transportation Advisory Committee, to like go on it together,
Sure.
see how the service works actually in real. I mean, we could all do it separately, but it would be more fun if it was an official trip. And we can invite other committees to join us on it.
Yeah, it would be a good thing to do as a test run or a pilot run. The MBTA actually does this on new routes, you know, they're like when they opened up the Green Line extension into Somerville.
And they got amazing media coverage of that, but I think.
Yeah, so that's an event that's press worthy. It's something that can be promoted.
Find your guy at the Globe, Nick.
Yeah.
I have one, don't worry.
It used to be easy to get to the Globe. When they had a lot of writers on staff, there was writers who, you know, like there'd be a restaurant writer or two of them, and you just call those people up. But man, they laid them all off and they contracted out now. It's harder.
I think my contact's still there, so
Good.
I think we're good.
I think Terry has something for us.
All right, just to answer your question, I don't know if it's on the 23rd. As of last night, we have the chair at the select board, Matt Johnson is chair. So he'll be doing the scheduling, but I'm sure it's coming up soon. And I love this project. I'm so excited. And when the transportation committee rides on the trolley, please invite the select board. I definitely want to go on it. It looks
Great. Okay. With that, so let's move on. So we're done with that topic. Terry, liaison observer comments, any others? That was a great one. Thanks for your support.
I actually had a number of other comments. So first of all, again, I'm really delighted to be here, and I was so disappointed missing all of your other meetings because we really need a transportation committee, and you guys are doing a lot of great work. So when you came to the select board, we had kind of a frustrating meeting. I think a lot of us were frustrated that we didn't get more done. However, the seeds were planted. And when we did our goal setting last night, it looks like one of the top goals that's going to come out is going to be doing a study that you guys recommended, a townwide transportation study. I guess Alan Cathcart was one of the ones who recommended that too. At that transportation select board meeting, if you remember, that suggestion was, and Linda picked up on it. And it's now on the goals list for the year. So that's really good. Another thing that's coming up before the select board is going to be a study of the parking meters. And we need them or not, and why, and all of that. And I heard you guys talking about that earlier tonight. So we might want to coordinate a little bit on that. And I also heard, Nick, that you were talking about sending a letter to all committees. And I didn't.
Oh, no, we're trying to figure out which committees it's important for us to connect to. So, so I sent a list of committees to Erin, and Erin and I have to figure out we want to take a first pass at figuring out what is it we need from that each committee, what do we need to survey the people they serve? Do we need to know what their issues are, whatever it is, so.
Right. And so you might end up having like a liaison from your committee.
That'll depend on what we determine we need. If there's something,
Right.
we will obviously need a liaison if we have regular stuff happening all the time with that committee. But I think some of them, we just may need one particular issue to work and, we won't need a liaison for that.
Okay. Well, like in particular, a couple of things that came up tonight, Article 33. The planning board might appreciate you guys working with them on the traffic situation over at the road. It'd be a good joint project. Anyway.
Yes, I just a comment on that, Terry. I was rather disappointed to hear when people brought that up, the response was, well, the developers do a traffic study, when they
Right.
give a proposal. And it's like, that's too late.
Right.
We should know what the
Exactly.
traffic situation is. The developer is going to go hire a consultant who will give him the answer he wants, right?
Well, not only that, but I think almost everyone in the audience was probably thinking the same thing you were.
Yeah,
We want to know now. The traffic's already terrible at that intersection.
Yeah. yeah. Okay, good. Thank you.
So that's just an example of a joint project. And then you said you're going to be meeting with Alan Cathcart.
I am, yeah, I'm regularly, he and I, we seem to be.
That's wonderful. And then another one you brought up was the Housing Authority. It turns out when we started doing DEI work, diversity, equity, inclusion, and we want to be a more welcoming community. We've been working on affordable housing for many years, and it's a difficult problem. But Bonnie Wilbur, the social worker in town, told me that as soon as people move in, immediately they have a transportation need. They finally got to move here, but they might not have a car, or they can't afford to maintain the car, whatever it is. Transportation is their number one priority in the outreach worker's mind, that she gets requests for it constantly. So working with the CHA on that, that's great.
Is Bonnie does she work for the CHA or is she a consultant or what?
She works
No.
for the town.
Pardon?
She works for the town.
She does, okay.
Right, she works for the town. So anybody who has needs like mental health needs or domestic violence or any kind of social service outreach, Bonnie is our outreach worker.
For anyone in town, not just town employees.
Anyone in town.
Right,
Community
citizens in
members.
town.
Okay,
The number one need is transportation, which is amazing. You might think it was food security or something else, but it's transportation. So that was a real eye opener to me.
with that, it's interesting too, because when I talked to Jennifer Polito, she's like, she wouldn't take a position like that. She said, you have to talk to our residents and find out what they need. I can't represent them. So,
Well, okay,
so.
let's see if they validate what Bonnie said.
Okay, maybe, Aaron, could you connect up with Bonnie and see if we can get any documentation on that? Not like who, but just sort of statistically. If
Sure,
there's some
yeah.
numbers that would help.
I can talk to Bonnie, yeah.
And the last comment I wanted to make, it's really interesting, all the different projects you guys are working on. And Laura, I agree completely with you. I've lived here 20 years and I have no idea how those commuter rail lots work, what that other lot's for, to find out. So it's really great you're working on that. And Aaron, I have the email for Brian Keene at the MBTA. If you want to, you guys were saying there was some mistake on the MBTA website. I think Laura said that, so
Yes.
I'll send that to you, Aaron. And I guess the other things that need to be corrected, Aaron, you could probably fix them since you're the
Yeah, I wrote them down.
Right, perfect. Okay, that's all of my comments. Thanks.
Okay, great, thank you. Anything else? Any other comments from committee members?
I have a
Sure.
question. I have two questions related to Terry's comments. The first is, this is with my grassroots organizing background. Do committees organize listening sessions with constituent groups like, people who live in affordable housing? Because that seems like it would be a really valuable thing for us to maybe work towards in a couple of months. It would take a while to get our act together for something like that, but I would be very interested in having a listening session with people who live in affordable housing in Concord on transit issues.
There's a couple different ways we could do it. We could either host sort of like a public forum where we could invite people to come, or we could host sort of a listening session and more of a, more intimate, I guess, rather than it wouldn't necessarily have to be broadcast or something like that. It had to be an open meeting, but so that people maybe felt a little bit more comfortable, or it wouldn't just be advocates, but perhaps more people that actually live or work with affordable housing.
Yeah, I was thinking probably not recorded and preferably in person, so people feel more comfortable talking about their personal experiences. So I would be very interested in helping organize something like that in the future. And then the other question is Article 33, do we have next steps on working with the planning?
Nothing specific yet, but it's on the list of committees that I sent to Aaron. So that's one of the most important ones, I think.
Great.
Yeah, I talked to Elizabeth Hughes about it today, the town planner, and she mentioned that the planning board is going to be talking about Article 33, and if they want to have any next steps for a little while, I think, still sort of, fresh in the mind and
Painful.
yeah, I didn't want to say it, but and so I think that if I mentioned that the TAC might be interested in assisting with that, and she said she'd let the planning board know, or at least keep it in the back of her mind for if they want to keep going with this in the near future.
Do you know what meeting that will be? So we could.
I believe they're talking about it tonight. I believe their meeting's tonight.
We won't hear that one. Okay.
Yeah.
We can hear it after the fact. Okay. Yeah, Terry.
Just to follow up on what Laura was saying also, you might want to consider a forum or a listening session or whatever with a variety of groups, like do one with senior citizens, one with disabled people, one with students, one with businesses. You've got a lot of different constituencies, and if you guys could hear from all of them and then figure out what we need, what our priorities, that would be a huge service to the town.
Yeah, I think, obviously we've got to have a good protocol for that, like working with the right committees or departments to set those up. But yes,
Right.
Absolutely. That's part of the plan. I do like this idea, rather than just doing broad surveys, to do more targeted surveys at specific communities, because I think that's much more powerful, the impact. And it would, if we discover some of our assumptions are wrong, that would be powerful too. To save some money. Okay. I'll open it up for public comment. Does anyone in the public have any comments or want to say anything? Mark? Mark Galis, identify.
I am here. Mark Galis, 62 Prescott Road. Great job, everybody. I'm really grateful. I think this is what the TAC is about. Really quick, I just say Laura's starting is great about kind of looking at transportation hubs and information about them. And I think that includes parking centers, like, you're saying, where there's a lot of parking places, and maybe we can think of other transportation important nexuses in the town and learn more about them, what's known, etc. I think that's a big thing of what the TAC is about, unexpected. Phil's talking about, safety training for kids, hearing from a policeman or from other adult cyclists with experience. I think impact, is a very beneficial thing, because kids hear certain things from their parents, but they need to have it modeled to really have it kind of reinforce and sink in and stuff. And the idea of an outcome of studying and identifying safety issues and locations and things is super important, so we can prioritize fixes. The trolley pilot sounds great. One little thought I would have is, I wonder if, since it's a pilot program, if there's any way to incentivize people in some clever way to give more detailed feedback on how it worked out. I mean, I don't know what it would be, not necessarily a discount, but maybe some little extra deal they can access on the web, or some, get some other brochures or maps, or who knows. The idea of forums, say, I've also been thinking very much about how the Disability Commission on Disability is, it feels to me like they're kind of spinning around in a vacuum a little bit. I was at a meeting where a young one was speaking very passionately about, I go by coffee shops and I don't know if they have the, facilities for me to be able to access it, et cetera. So I think there's kind of a nexus between transportation, business, and inclusion. And it, if Concord would be a more inclusive, accessible, maneuverable town, you know what I mean? I think that could really be something we could be proud of. One last thing, MBTA comes up in certain cases where people sort of say, well, it's the MBTA, what can we do with them? And I tried to look on a website and find out information about accessibility, and they have sort of a customer use one, and it had nothing, I couldn't find the word accessibility or wheelchair or anything, but they do have a coded list of stations and what's there, but it's not in a user-friendly way, I wouldn't think. I mean, it's a shame. But Concord has, if you search on the town website, a position called MBTA representative appointed by the select board, but I don't know if there's way to, if that's the way to influence MBTA and get them to do things or not. But I think the town needs to develop a strategy through whatever means to get the MBTA to respond to us. One last thought on that, I would think, is maybe joining with other communities that don't have, say, accessibility at their stations, so that it isn't just one town at a time hitting against the MBTA, but it's like these 12 towns are saying what's going on. So thank you very much. Great meeting. Really appreciate it.
Anyone else from the public? Thank you, Mark. Mark's comments and something else that I think Terry had said, about parking. Aaron, could you get from Marcia that study that was done several years ago about parking and make it available to the committee?
Yeah,
especially if the select board is going to be dealing with it. I think we need to have a position on that.
It's on the town's website. I think I linked it on the Transportation Advisory Committee's webpage as well.
Great. Oh, okay, great. And I have a comment about that, Terry, that the opinions about parking really seem to me to reflect a lot of people not thinking it through very well. If you don't have parking meters, people can just park there all day. And to hear the business community say they don't like the meters, when the meters allow them to have turnover of customers, as opposed to, say, a commuter parking in Concord Center and walking to the train station, I just don't understand it. I just don't understand the whole.
Right. I think that is what is going to be discussed. There's 2 points of view, and that's one of the points of view. And we're going to think about doing another study, or we're just going to think long-term about parking. What do we need to do? And both points of view will.
I think before we need to do a study, we need to think about what we want. We need to have some discussions in town about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
we're
all.
not ready to do anything yet. We're
Good.
just going to be working on it this year. There's pros and cons, and rather than spending all the time on it now.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you. Okay. Someone want to move to adjourn?
I will, but Aaron, I don't see the traffic study or the parking study on our page, so I don't. Maybe I'm missing it.
2 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I just went and found it. And I was like, okay, I'll add that now.
Okay, so then I move to adjourn. Thank you, Aaron.
Have a second from someone?
Second,
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. Dan,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Kathleen,
aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Norm.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye as well. Thank you, everybody. Good meeting. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You.